Hello, I'm Segun Manuel, and we believe that entrepreneurship is something we must develop in Africa and indeed the developing economies of the world. That is why we have this program called Let's Talk Business on this station. We want you to watch because we sit down with entrepreneurs and they encourage you on how to develop your own entrepreneurship business. Keep watching Let's Talk Business on this station.
Let's Talk Business showing on the station.
Welcome to Let's Talk Business. My name is Segun Manuel, and on today's episode of the program, we have one of Nigeria's finest, Mr. Steve Harris, with us. He's the CEO of Education, and he'll be looking at how to find your natural habitat. As an entrepreneur, you should be able to find your habitat so that you can explore, make money, and do business in your natural habitat. Mr. Steve, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I've listened to almost all your podcasts, apart from maybe the latest one.
Thank you.
And I know that quite a lot of insights shared in all of these your podcasts. One of it is what we're going to be talking about today, finding your natural habitat. I listened to it and it helped me a lot. And that's what we want you to share on how to find your natural habitat. People wonder, natural habitat, what does that mean? Talk to us about finding your natural habitat.
All right, finding your natural habitat is a concept I learned from Feladuratory. And he had shared with me several years ago how every creature had been created for specific environments and a specific purpose. So, for example, fish don't fly. Fish prosper, so to speak, most generally in the water. Birds don't swim. Most birds don't swim, but birds find their natural expression in the air. In the same vein, I believe that everyone created by God was wired, fired, and designed for a specific environment. So, for example, you'll notice that certain people will flourish generally in the banking sector because they are called to be bankers. They have the natural wiring. They love figures. They love accounting, all the boring stuff that I don't like. You know what I'm saying? People like me, I've always been drawn to communication. I've always been drawn to the way people speak. I've always been drawn to counseling and coaching. That has been my natural habitat. So one of the things I try to let people know is God's greatest desire for them is to earn a fee doing something that they were created to do for free. So, for example, you would notice that several people who are tremendously successful, especially the top 5% in any industry, if you take a critical look at it, these people truly love what they do. They were, so to speak, born to do that. So you notice that in the entertainment business, in music, Beyonce, Michael Jackson, they were born to do that, and they flourished like nowhere else. In comedy, Nigeria, Alibaba, Basketmouth, all those guys, they were born to do that. It comes to them naturally. So one of the things that I find out is if entrepreneurs can find first off, their natural area of gifting, their natural habitats, and then build a business from it, it becomes exciting. I don't know who your favorite footballer is, but I happen to like Ronaldo. I happen to like Ronaldo. And, one of the things I like about him, apart from being so good at what he does, but he gets paid to do something that comes to him naturally. That's what I believe God's greatest desire is for every individual.
And, everybody has this. By default, everybody has a natural talent. Yeah. But the problem actually is how to find it. There's some factors you talked about in that podcast on how we can find out what our natural habitats are. Share more on that for us.
Okay, cool. There are several things that people need to look at in identifying their natural habitat. So, for example, number one, what comes to you naturally? That's why it's called your natural habitat. What area of gifting comes to you naturally? But now this is the problem. Sometimes people find out what they're good at, but they say there's no business around it, so they don't see themselves making money from it. So, for example, back in school, I always knew I had, so to speak, the gift of the gab, but I never knew you could make business out of it. I just figured, maybe the maximum professional career I could have would be maybe as a broadcaster. So I tried to dabble in some shape or form into broadcasting, even though that was not exactly my forte. But I never knew that, for example, until I met Feladuratory, that people could get paid to talk. And when I figured that out, I was like, oh, awesome. This is somebody who's literally living, who is a picture of my future. So which is one of the second things that people need to look at. Who is a picture of your future? So who is it that when that person does what he does, something says to you that, man, I can do this too. You know what I mean? So looking at my background, even though I had no prior antecedents for anyone who was, so to speak, getting paid to speak. Once I saw someone who was speaking and getting paid for, I mean, fellas, you know, that it's not like he was a pastor, because I mean, I know pastors who speak and do what they do, but I saw someone in the corporate space who was speaking and earning a living, and that was attractive to me. So number one, what comes to you naturally? Number two, who is a picture of your future? Number three, time flies when you're doing what? You know, that's one of the things, because, for example, you know, several people go to work in the morning and they're like, oh, God, I hate my job, I want to leave. And other people are like, what, are you serious? I mean, it's already 4 o'clock. Where did the time go? You know, so time flies when you do what? For some people, it's talking about football. For some people, it's, you know, gisting. For some people, but whatever it is, you've got to be able to identify and say, you know, time flies when I'm doing what. So number one, what comes to me naturally? Number two, who's a picture of my future? Number three, time flies when I'm doing what? Number four, what sort of conversations interest you the most? You know, I mean, I studied industrial math in school, which was a big career mistake, to say the least, because I don't like numbers. I always joke that the only numbers I like are the ones in my bank account. That's the only number I'm interested in. You know what I mean? But I don't like numbers. So to put me in a career that would involve figures would be to jeopardize who I am. I would literally bring, and I studied industrial math, you know what I'm saying? So it doesn't come to me naturally. So now imagine a situation, bro, where every college kid gets into school to study something that they're naturally gifted at. Imagine if we could do psychometric testing. So as students are finishing SSC, before they get into university, even before they say, oh, I want to study medicine, because that's what normally happens. Our parents will say, oh, you're going to study medicine because there's no doctor in the family, or I couldn't be an engineer, therefore you're going to be an engineer. But in reality, what we need to do is to find out, you know what are these kids naturally gifted for? What are they wired to do? And we put them in those departments. And when they flourish in that department, they begin to succeed like nowhere else. So imagine if we have a critical mass of people who love what they do and then do what they love. Imagine what that will do for our economy. Imagine how those people, because now they've gotten experience. If I was trained to study communication, so to speak, I would definitely pay more attention in class. I'd probably come out with the first class, because that is my natural gifting, because I know that eventually what I'm studying is going to be helpful to my business, because after school I will set up something that has to do with communication, either speaking, trading, coaching, or whatever the case may be. But what happens is we go into school, we study any course. And then we, when we finish from that, we get any grade. And then we come out with any grade, we get any job. And when we get any job, we become anybody. You know what I'm saying? Or literally any work, as the case may be. But that's what it is. So those are a few pointers that, it's not rocket science. Those are a few pointers that could help people discover what their natural habits are.
I know we talked about, one time we talked about passion and problem, the two P's.
Absolutely.
How would that help?
All right. In doing that, you need to be able to identify, number one, what's my passion? Like I said, what comes to me naturally? Passion will always make the difference. I've always been interested in, when I listen to several people who are fantastic communicators, like my pastor, Pastor Paul Adifarasin, Fela Durotoye, when I listen to these people, I say to myself, Chai, I haven't even started yet, because the way they string words together, they string concepts together, it just bamboozles me, and I'm passionate about that. And for example, with my passion, I started paying, so to speak, to buy their materials, get their books, listen to their audio, and just surround myself with that kind of information, because I said, this is what I'm passionate about. Unfortunately, not too many entrepreneurs have found what they're passionate about. Many of us just tend to go through the motions, just being mediocre. And just, going through the motions. There's no passion, there's no joy, nothing gets them going. All right? So number one, you've got to be able to identify what is my passion. Number two, you've now got to be able to say, okay, what is my personality? Does my personality suit my passion? You know what I mean? Because you cannot, to some degree, be in my line of work as a public speaker and consultant and be very shy and very quiet. It doesn't necessarily go together. You can't be so much of an introvert. Yes, on the outside you have to be gregarious and forceful and assertive, but you can't use a shy personality to connote public speaking. It doesn't work. You know what I mean? Next, you've got to be able to ask yourself, who are the people that have the problem that my passion can solve? You know what I mean? So it's not just enough for you to have a passion. It's now, in order to make a business out of it, you've got to say, okay, now I have this passion for public speaking or training or consulting or whatever the case may be. Who are the people that have this problem? Where are they? What's the problem? What's the problem my passion can solve? So for example, I meet a lot of young motivational speakers or public speakers, and they say, oh, they love speaking, they love this, that, and the other, but they can't seem to turn this into a business. And I tell them, you know what, you've got to be able to ask yourself, what is the problem that your passion can solve? Because, for example, and the problem is tied to the people. So, for example, as a speaker, my services, so to speak, involve talk or helping people optimize their performance from one point to the other. I like to say that the purpose of my life is to be the shortest distance between where you are and where you want to be. That's what I want to be, the shortest distance. Now, when I meet these young people, they say they've not been able to turn this into a business. And I say, well, because you're talking to the wrong people. One of the things I found out in several years of being an entrepreneur is that you've got to be able to identify the difference between your consumers and your customers. You know what I mean? Your consumers are the people who love what you do, but they may not necessarily be able to pay for it. But your customers, they love what you do, and they are willing to pay for it. You know what I mean? So, for example, many of my clients, many of the people that I target most of my energies at are the people who can pay. Yes, from time to time, yes, I do get invitations to speak at universities, colleges, churches, religious organizations, which is fantastic, but they're not necessarily my prime customer. They're not the ones who I can charge $1 million and they will go back and forth, and at the end of the day they pay me and I'm happy, they're happy, my wife is happy, everybody's happy. You know what I mean? So those kind of things. So you've got to be able to identify who are the people that have the problem and take it up from there.
That's right. You heard it all from Steve Harris. He told you how you can discover your talent and find your passion. But when it comes back, he will tell us how you can turn your passion into profit and develop to become the entrepreneur that you want to be. Don't go anywhere. When we come back on Let's Talk Business. Welcome back. Steve Harris is still in the house. He's actually a life coach. He's a public speaker, and he's everything, like he said, is the shortest distance from where you are to where you want to be. That's a powerful one you've shared with us. But I'm still going to keep you. I know that your book, From College Dropout to Corporate Sellout, I'll urge you, if you don't already have Steve Harris's book, you should get it. I've read it myself. It's a life-changing book. It's called From College Dropout to Corporate Sellout. I can assure you, as an entrepreneur, this is a handbook that you must have handy to help you to know. I read what's under there. It's not what you don't have that limits you. It is what you have but don't know how to use. Now you know where I got that statement from. It's from Steve Harris. This bottom line is what you just mentioned. Many of us have a lot of problems around us that we could solve and make money and make fame and make everything we want to be from solving those problems. But the problem is we don't realize and recognize that we have those solutions. Talk to us about this statement.
Okay, it's not what you don't have that limits you, it's what you have, but you don't know how to use. And for me, this is my life mantra because it's come to epitomize everything that my life is all about. As the book states, I dropped out of school. And when I tell people I dropped out of school, the first thing they say, oh, you dropped out of Harvard. I said, no, I didn't drop out of Harvard. I said I dropped out of Uniben and eventually Madonna University. So I don't have a college degree. Now, in a country like ours, Nigeria, where it can be quite discriminatory towards people who even have HNDs, how much more someone who doesn't even have a BSc. So you can imagine, there were so many opportunities that I could not take advantage of just because of my lack of a qualification. But like I've said before, it's not what you don't have that limits you, it's what you have, but you don't know how to use. So even though initially organizations were not willing to hire me, I started saying, okay, you don't have to hire me, I will volunteer. So I would go and, spend time and just go every day until somebody gave me something to do. I was speaking at the NYSC camp a couple of months ago. These corporates were about to take on the world, join the labor market, and become competitive. And I said to them, I said, you know what? The truth is there are very few jobs out there, but there's tons of work. And I asked them, how many of you would like to work in an oil company? They all raised their hands. How many would you like to work in a bank? They raised their hands. So I said, you know what? If you want to work in a bank, let me just give you a few pointers. Because you may send your resume and nobody's going to call you. But if you want to work in a bank, this is what you want to do. Go to the nearest bank in your neighborhood. Wear a nice suit. Get there early. stand at the gates. As staff are driving in, say to them, good morning, welcome to XYZ Bank, have a nice day. Good morning, welcome to XYZ Bank, have a nice day. Good morning, welcome to XYZ Bank, have a nice day. And stay there the entire day. And when people are closing, say to them, hope you had a great day, see you tomorrow. I hope you had a great day, see you tomorrow. I hope you had a great day, see you tomorrow. I said to them, try that for a week. Now, of course, you can imagine all of them were like, no. But I said to them, guess what? If you do that every day for a week, do you honestly not think that someone in that organization will not say to you, young man, come, you've been standing here all day. What do you want? What can we do for you? And then what you get is access. You get to now tell them, because you've been preparing your elevator pitch. You've been preparing what you're going to say, because all you need is just one opportunity. And when you get that opportunity, you can seize it. But now that's the problem. Many young people want, allow me to say, the sexy jobs. They want to work in Shell. They want to work in the telecoms firms and the banks, but they don't want to do what is required. You know, that's what I'm saying. That's your competitive edge. So there are tons of graduates out there who have first degrees, not just even from Nigeria. They're guys who have MBAs in Harvard and are now coming to Nigeria to look for jobs, and they're competing with you who went to a federal or state or maybe a private university. Who do you think they're going to look at first? They're going to look at the guy from Harvard. So you that didn't go to Harvard, that you went to, also was on strike, eventually they now let you go. You know what I'm saying? What is your competitive edge? You've got to be able to say, it's not what I don't have that limits me, it's what I have, but I don't know how to use. So now in bringing this to the business case, right, you've got to be able to say to yourself, okay, you know what? Say it the way we say, it's waiting I carry. What do I have on me? What is it that I have? What's the skill that I have, right? And I started by, give an example, I started my business in January 2011. I had just left Felederoto, who I'd worked with for over 5 years, an incredible mentor, and I didn't want to go. It was by divine instruction, and I left, and I said to myself, okay, you know what, now that I'm leaving, what am I going to do? How am I going to take care of my family? I have a wife who's pregnant. She's just left her job. I'm also technically unemployed. How am I going to take care of my family? Because in 3, 4, 5 months' time, my baby's going to be born. So I've got to have a plan. And I was sitting at home one day, and I was bemoaning my fate, because I only had 20,000 naira, Segun. I had 20,000 naira in my bank account, and my wife didn't have any money. So we were spending an average of 1,000 naira a day for food. And I said to myself, we have 20 days before anything shuts down. We just eat and die. Or, you know, we're going to beg, borrow, or Lord knows what. And I sat down and I was complaining. And God said to me, he said, are you not the one that says it's not what you don't have that limits you, but just what you have, but you don't know how to use? I was like, yeah, but how does that help me right now? So he told me to itemize my gifts. And I started writing, and I don't know about you, you know, you're multi-talented and gifted. I'm not as gifted as you. I think the only gift I have is communication, just one. You know, when the Bible talks about, you know, God giving 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1, I think he gave me 1, because he just knew that's this one, that's all this guy can handle. And he gave me 1, which is technically communication. So I wrote communication, and I started breaking it down into different ramifications. And I said, okay, you know what, I'm a consultant. I've been doing that for about, at that time, 7 years. So consulting, 7 years experience. I can speak, so I just speaking, motivational speaking. I said, I have this idea of writing a book, but I've not done it yet, but I just wrote it down. Coaching, I said, I just gotten certified as a coach. I wrote that down. And I started saying to myself, if I could make any amount of money that year, how much would I like to make? And it came to about, you know, you don't have money now, you just have dreams. It came to about 88 million naira, and I wrote that down. So I broke down how much would each of these gifts or talents be able to make for me. So consulting, I said, well, if I'm lucky and I can get 10 clients to pay me 1 million naira or 3 million naira over the course of the year, that's 30 million naira. If I can coach, you know, 5 people that will give me 200K, that's 1 million naira. If I can sell my book at 1,005 and do 1,000 copies, that's 1.5 million naira. And I just broke it down to something that I could see, just to the basics. And I got started. Now, I was working from home. All I had was a laptop. I didn't have an office. I didn't have a desk. I didn't have a chair. Just my normal furniture. And when I had to work, I would put my laptop, literally put my laptop on my laps and just start working. If I had to do proposals, I would do it from there. I was sending proposals even though I had no clients, because I wasn't competing with Visible Impact. Just for integrity's sake, so I wasn't sending proposals to the clients that I used to manage, so that they wouldn't, you know, it was very hard. And cut the long story short, without a table, without a chair, without staff, without nothing, in 1 year I made 17 million naira. just from a table, well, just from my laptop, and eventually I could now buy the table and buy the chair. And God has been good to us since then. So in reality, when I look at it and I hear people say, oh, there's no money in Nigeria, I say, no, there's money. You haven't seen the opportunity. And that's the mistake many people make. They look for the money first instead of looking for the problem. If you solve big problems, you get big money. If you solve small problems, you get small money.
I like how you say the bigger the problem, the bigger the solution. The bigger the solution,
the greater the value. The greater the value, the bigger the money placed on that value, and the bigger the money, the bigger the boy. Or let's say that again. You know, the bigger the problem, the bigger the solution. The bigger the solution, the greater the value that is placed on that solution. The greater the value, the bigger the money, the bigger the money, the bigger the boy. That's what it is. So it's all about being a big boy.
That's right. In all of what you were saying, you talked about Fela Durute. I know you are more like the crown prince of public speaking in Nigeria. More like it.
More like it.
Yeah. So I want you to talk about the place of mentorship in all of this, finding your natural talent and making it become a gifting and turning it into money, into profits.
I would say mentorship is very important. I don't think anyone will go far if you don't have a mentor. Now, a mentor is different from a role model. A role model is someone you admire, but you have no physical relationship or contact with. A mentor is someone who you admire, has results that you admire, and you also has some level of physical, proximity to you. The mentor must know that he's mentoring you. So you can't say, oh, I'm being mentored by Steve Harris, and Steve Harris doesn't even know who you are. That's not a mentor, that's a role model. So you know what I mean? You and I have a relationship like that. So, you mentor me in some areas, I mentor you in some areas, and we both know that we're in this relationship. Now, I think it's really important. Unfortunately, truth is, many people are not ready to serve. Many people are not ready to get low, but scripture says that he who must be master of all must first become a servant. So everybody wants to be CEO of Me, Myself Incorporated, doing nothing, going nowhere. But very few people know that, Fela gave me an opportunity. There are three people that gave me an opportunity to work, even though I had no degree. Number one was Pastor Femi Paul of Grace Assembly. Number two was Charles Otudor, CEO of AdStrats Consortium. And number three is Fela Durute. And these three people, even though I had no college degree, brought me into their space, and they started educating me and inspiring me. And I eventually got to work with Fela Durute, and I volunteered at his office for 5 months without getting paid. I was coming all the way from Yanapaja to VGC every single day. My parents did not support my career move because they said I was working with Charles Otudor, and God had told me on divine instruction to go and work with Fela Durute, and I wasn't collecting a salary. Now, Fela himself was like, you know what, you can't be coming from this distance and not getting paid. I said to him, sir, everybody wants to work with you. Every young person sees you, but every young person wants something from you at a price. I don't want anything from you. And to let you know that it's not about money, I'm willing to come every day and not get paid. And I did it for 5 months, and Fela himself said, you know what, you can't keep doing this. You just can't keep doing this. Because I would come early, leave late, I would rag money from my friends, and they were always very gracious to give me transport fare. And that's how I started working. And I tell people, what it took you to get somewhere is the least that is required to keep you there. So, what it took you to get there is the least required to keep you there. So you can't lose your hunger, you can't lose your passion. Even though, because I wasn't so used to the corporate environment, very few people know that Fela fired me 4 times because I was at that time incompetent, so to speak, in business. There were certain things I just couldn't do, and he fired me 4 times. I refused to go 4 times. I said to him, there's nowhere else to go. So if I have to die doing this thing to make it work, it'll work. But other people, if they had gotten laid off, they would have just gone. But I said, there's nowhere else to go. So you know what? I will kill myself until this thing works. And cut the long story short, consistency. And I started building expertise, and they say the rest is history. So I tell people, Steve Harris is an accident. Steve Harris is a mistake. I didn't plan to be a motivational speaker. I didn't plan to be a successful life strategist. I was serving someone, and I found myself here. God just used Fela to bless me. Now, you can imagine how many people who have gotten opportunities like this to be close to someone as a mentor, and they now abuse the privilege. They start asking the mentor for money. I said, please, I don't have money. I can't pay him for it. You don't do that. I've never asked Fela for money. Fela is my brother. He's my father. He's my pastor. He's my friend. And as close as we are, I don't ask him for money, because I recognize the role he plays in my life. If, as a father, he says to me, Bobo, this is your car, where take. And he's done that before. He bought me my first car. I didn't ask him to. He bought me my first car. He gave me money for my second car. That was him as my father, but never me asking him. Do you understand what I'm saying? But too many people, young people, they see the glory. that their mentors possess, and they want to wear the suits, they want to wear the, the pocket square, the, what I'm saying, they want to drive the cars, but it's not that. Can you take off his spirit? Can you serve? Can you do things that nobody will see and believe that you're doing that? I mean, I've washed clothes for FD, I've washed his car. Even when he had drivers that were washing it, I would wake up in the morning because he eventually adopted me, and I started staying in BGC. Even though he had drivers that would wash his car, I would wake up earlier than the drivers, and I would start washing Fela's car, Tara's car, because I said to myself, how else can I say thank you to this man who has given me such a great opportunity, even though I was his office assistant, and eventually I became his PA, and eventually I became an associate consultant, and eventually I became the head of our consulting group and literally managing the organization. How can I pay this guy? That even today, that even though I don't work with him on a regular basis, I still sow seeds, because recognize, it's scripture says, Paul planted, Apollos, whatever, watered, and God gave the increase. So I've recognized that I also need to water the gift that he sowed inside of me, or else the gift will die. So from time to time, I would go to the office, I would help out. I would come to the house, I would help out. Even though I'm doing what I'm doing, and people say, Steve Harris, I'm still his boy. So mentorship is very important, but most people don't understand it. Yeah.
Also, aside from mentoring, when you were talking now, you talked about service.
Yes.
Our generation doesn't know how to serve. People don't volunteer.
Oh no, they want to volunteer and get something from you.
Which is wrong. The whole idea is not about getting something, it's about learning.
Yes. It's about showing your value. When you volunteer, it's an audition. It's like America's Got Talent or Nigeria's Got Talent or Nigerian Idol. You're volunteering, you're auditioning. This is what I can do. Look at me in my element. See what I can do. See how early I come. See how excellent I am. See how I pay attention to detail. That's what you're doing. You're auditioning. And if you give a great audition, guess what's going to happen? They're going to retain you. And even if they can't retain you eventually, they will find out to see. They will refer you. But most people just say, they know how much are they even pay me. They're not even paying me, sir. I'm coming from my house. They can't even see that I'm sweating. They didn't even give me tea fare. Many people say, sir, I want to come and volunteer with you. Well, sir, you'll be giving me transport fare. I'm like, really? How different is that from a job? Why should I do that? Why should I train you? Why should I teach you and then pay you? You should pay me. I got here. You know what I'm saying? God has done all these things, and there's certain things I know that you don't know. You should pay me to come and volunteer. It's not me to pay you. But I pray that with your program, with your platform, that many more people, many more young people would go and understand it and learn. There's something that Dangote knows that I don't know. If I want, and we read these things in books and we think it's a joke. For example, you want Tony Elumelu to be your mentor. He knows something that you don't know. You want the MDs of all these organizations. Okay, no problem. Identify this person. Write him a letter. You can't send him an email. Write him a letter. FedEx it. Go and borrow money. FedEx it. It will get to his desk. And say to him, sir, all I have is 20K. I just want to sow this 20K into your life. Can you give me 10 minutes to ask you 3 questions that if you answer these 3 questions will change my life forever? All I have is 20,000 naira. Could you please give me an audience for 10 minutes to just ask you 3 questions? And I know that when you ask me those 3 when you answer those 3 questions, my life will change. But you know what? They ain't gonna do it. People will say, I don't have money, Jerry.
Why put water into the ocean?
Do you understand? Why put water into the ocean? But guess what? They'll say they don't have money, but they have a BB. They have a smartphone. That is 30, 40, 50, 60,000 naira. And guess what, bro? They don't even have enough money to pay for the BIS that's on their phone. But they're carrying flashy phones. Go and sell the phone. Sell the phone. Take the money. Write the check. Write it in the bank. If it's a bank MD in UBA, write a UBA check, right? And say, this is it. I want you. So that you know that when he looks at it, he'll tell his teller, go and look into the person's account. He'll see that you have shit buying in your accounts, but you're willing to sow. Do you honestly think that man will not give you his audience? Of course he will. But they don't understand that. So it's not a very sexy message that people preach these days, but that's the truth. That's what many people need to learn.
We heard it all from Steve Harris, and that's where we'll be wrapping up today's episode. I hope you enjoyed all Steve Harris has shared. Before we go, I'd like to tell you again, you can visit his website where you can get most of his podcasts and his materials. His website is www.iamsteveharris.com, www.iamsteveharris.com. If you go there, you can get all the links to him and also get his materials. Thank you for watching today's episode of Let's Talk Business. My name is Segun Manuel, and we have been talking business.
The challenges of the third world countries is that they are emerging. They are dynamic.
Employ people. What is the minimum wage that people are supposed to be paid for the kind of job they're doing?
Hello, welcome to Let's Talk Business. My name is Segun Manuel, and on Let's Talk Business we look at how to build entrepreneurship, not just in Africa but in the developing nations of the world. I urge you to join us here to watch Let's Talk Business weekdays on this station.
Imagine Africa.